The Access Configurator was added to the game, and it spawns in both the Chief Engineer's and Head of Personnel's locker. What the Access Configurator does is it lets you configure the access of, well, objects that have access. So for example, I could configure the access of my own locker as a Chief Engineer. Well, if you left click on an object with access, you'll get this UI, and it'll say Privilege ID Insert. So in order to actually change the access of a locker, you must put in a privileged ID, and you can only change the access to things you have access to. And the way this works is, if I uncheck Chief Engineer, for example, and so I don't have an ID and it's just my PDA. If I open it, well, there's no access to this locker anymore because I made it so. And you can do this to any door. So if I go up to this door, access to this device cannot be modified. The inserted ID is missing the privilege bar. So you can't just give yourself access because I don't have access to the door in the first place. So you can't just permanently break doors to places you don't have access to. However, I'll just quickly show you, this can get very dangerous for the station if a syndicate gets their hands on this and an all-access card. So if you were to ever get the captain's ID, you could do interesting things with it. So this door by default is an all-access. This door by default is an all-access door. So like if you were to ever get something, like even just having the chief engineer access, for example, I can make it so that only the chief engineer can open this door, which in this case is me. So if I take the PDA off, I can't close the door and I won't be able to open it. So there is quite some danger to this in general, because if somebody gets their hands on this, they can really mess up doors access. However, it isn't the end of the world, because even if they were to go crazy and like just pick a bunch of different accesses to this door, for example, like if they decided to just put research on there, well, if you only have research ID, even though this door has chief engineer, you can actually open this door, even though I don't have the chief engineer part. So realistically, you can only lock doors to the greatest access you can steal, if that makes sense. I understand this is probably a little bit of information overload, but I think you should be able to figure it out. So this door has chief engineer and research. So by only having research, I'm still able to open the door. So to very quickly sum up the way the access configurator works for changing access is, in order to change the access, you must have all the access to a door. So for example, I have the captain's card, so I have access to the head of personnel card. However, if the access is changed to any access, as long as you have access to it, you can still open the door. So like if I change it to the chief engineer, which I have the chief engineer ID, I can still open the door. But if I were to only put my chief engineer access into this, well, I can't modify it because I never got the head of personnel access. So that is how it works in a nutshell. It can be used for Syndicate's advantage, but if some random person were to pick it up, or a syndicate picks it up and doesn't have an all-access card, they can't quite ruin the accesses on every door, but there's definitely going to be interesting scenarios that arise because of this. And I'm sure some people are wondering what happens if you use a emag on a door. So if I emag this door, it will, in its usual fashion, break open the door. So I need to fix the door real quick, which means I need to unbolt it, which that was not it. Close the door. And this is what a door that has been emag's access looks like. If I put in my chief engineer ID, it still has the command access. However, I don't have any access, and I'm still able to open the door. So it actually doesn't fry the access necessarily. Here's what you have to do. To fix a door, you have to basically deconstruct it. So you can just right-click it, begin deconstructing. First, all of its wires must be cut, and what that actually means is all the wires except the bolt wires must be cut. So I'll snip them all except bolt. There we go. I've snipped them all. And then the next step is to weld it. And then snip a bolt wire last. You could probably do it not quite in that order, but That's just how I do it. It probably would be more efficient just to snip the bolt then before doing all that. So now I have killed this door, and what I could do to fix it, I can just, because this isn't a door, this is an airlock assembly now, so there's no door component to it. So I can just quickly go over here. You could put the glass back in it, and then screwdriver it. And now it's a all-access airlock door, but with the access configurator, you can remake it a command door, like so, and now I can open it. So it's a little tedious to have to fix a EMAG door, but it can be done, and you'd probably have to get somebody with an airlock painter to fix it. But yeah, it can be fixed. So EMAGing isn't the death of doors anymore, and it actually admittedly does give engineers some new things to do. So I'm all for that. And yes, you can. There are certain crates, like private crates, which aren't really mapped, and you can also give yourself access to one of these, so only the chief engineer can open it. And so if I take the ID out, there you go, I can lock it. That should pretty thoroughly explain how the access configurator works. Thank you for watching.